Hey guys, it's something I wanted to share with you guys today. And so to start, I want to start off with a story. Several years ago, I was 14 years old and I was with my church youth group and we were flying to Seattle, Washington. And I was really excited. All of us were excited because it was like a big trip. We were flying somewhere without our parents and we were really excited about it. So I get on the plane. And in the plane, in the front of the seat in front of me, there was this compartment that I'd never seen before on a plane. So naturally, like a 14-year-old boy, I start playing with this compartment to see what it is, what it does. And I found this little hatch underneath, and I found a lever that released it. As it opens up, I see that it's the oxygen mask, and we'd just seen a demonstration of it. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. So I pull out my Kodak disposable camera. You remember the wind-up things we used to have? I was getting ready to grab this oxygen mask and put it on and take a picture with it. Well, at the same time, one of our chaperones realizes what I'm up to. It's like, what are you doing? Close that, put it back, don't touch anything. I'm like, all right, fine. And so I try and close it, but it won't close. At the same time, the stewardess is coming down the aisle and she's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I don't know. It just fell open. I wasn't the most honest, but I was 14. So she goes and tries to close it and it doesn't work. And she's like, well, I'm going to go ask some questions. Sit tight. I'll be right back. So she walks to the front of the plane and then she comes back running about 30 seconds later. And she's like, hold on. Don't touch anything, because if you pull out that oxygen mask or if it falls out for any reason, it will deploy all the oxygen masks. And according to the law, that requires us to make an emergency landing. Whatever you do, don't touch it. This scares me. Like, I can't even explain how much this scares 14-year-old TJ. And at the same time behind me, there was a different chaperone. And he's like, oh man, you're in trouble now. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, make an emergency landing. That means they're gonna get the fire department. That means they're gonna get the police department. You know, they're probably even gonna get the FBI. They're probably going to question you because they're going to think you're a terrorist. So I haven't said this yet, but I was 14 years old and this is June 2002, like 9 months post 9/11. So people were pretty freaked out about people causing a disturbance on airplanes. So instantly my head goes absolutely insane. I'm picturing myself being waterboarded in Guantanamo. I'm picturing myself spending the rest of my life in prison. And this chaperone just keeps talking to me. He's like, man, kid like you, you're not going to do well in federal prison. You know what they do to terrorists? You know what happens to terrorists? And my mind is like exploding with all of this fear, picturing my life is ending. Everything is done. I was absolutely terrified. So a few minutes later, a stewardess comes back, and with her is the co-pilot of the plane, and he'd torn a sheet out of the manual for the plane. I'm not sure why they have those, but he's got this sheet torn out of the manual of the plane that talks about this oxygen mask. He comes forward, he's like, what have you done? I'm like, eh. So he spends some time working on this and finally gets it closed after like 10 minutes. And then he looks at me and he says, young man, we have another 4 hours on this flight. I want you to sit on your hands and do not move for the remainder of this flight. So this was like 17 years ago, long time ago. Looking back now, I realized I wasn't going to be a suspected terrorist. I wasn't going to spend my life in federal prison. I was a stupid kid on a church trip that was just being dumb. Everyone knew it. No one was going to suspect me of anything else crazy. But because there was a voice sitting right behind me that was speaking all this fear to me, I was picturing my whole life ending. I was picturing it all being done. All these terrible, terrible things were completely changing my perspective on what the situation actually was and the full gravity of what the situation actually was. And it was totally ruining my thought life for that 30 minutes that this whole thing took place in. Fortunately for me, that whole exchange only took about 30 minutes. And after sitting on my hands for the remainder of the flight, because I did what I was told, the whole thing was done. The fear was gone. It was all done. But it's different for most of us in life. So many of us have had voices of fear speaking to us about what's going to happen, what could happen, what if you fail, what if you don't make it, what if this doesn't work out, what if you're not good enough, what if this person leaves, what happens? And we end up having our lives that are shaped by fear. For some of us, it's just sections of our lives that have been shaped by fear. But for many of us too, our whole lives have been shaped by fear. What happens if I do this and these people think that? Or if these people see these things about me, I need to hide these things. And we have our whole lives dictated, molded, and shaped by fear. That's not how it's supposed to be. In the scriptures, it says perfect love drives out fear. And we're not meant to be shaped by fear. We are meant to rest in love. We are meant to be empowered by love. And we can surrender that fear when we embrace this love. The scriptures also say that God knows the plans he has for us, plans to prosper us, not to harm us, plans to give us hope in a future. And if we rest in this love and allow that love to renew us, not only does it drive out the fear, but it empowers us to embrace the plans that God has for us, hope, a future. It gives us freedom. The scriptures also say he doesn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and a strong mind. So many of us have allowed areas of our lives, or maybe even our entire life, to be shaped by fear. But the incredible thing is when we learn to embrace this empowering love, this life-giving love, we experience so much freedom. And that love can actually reshape, remold, and remake those areas of our life that were shaped by fear. And that is always how we were meant to live. Not shaped by fear, but empowered by love.